Hey everyone, I hope everybody had a good Christmas. If you celebrate Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or wonderful Kwanzaa, whatever you may celebrate in your part of the world. If you did celebrate holidays, boy, I hope they were good. I can't wait for New Year's. It is actually December 30th and tomorrow is New Year's Eve. And most of us in the world are really ready to kiss 2020 goodbye. So what I wanted to do with you today is some people have been asking me, like, how do you set up your indicators to get them to look the way they do? So I thought I would do a short video on how I set up the indicators on my chart. And you can see in the top window here, I have my baseline, and I'm using the CQ baseline. And I did an earlier video on this, but one of the reasons I like it is because it gives you these dots, which is a visual indication that price has closed on the opposite side of your baseline. And it also lets you change the color of the dots so that if it closes, more than one ATR, it'll give you a different color dot. In this case, I've got it set to white on my black background. The other thing that I like is if you notice these numbers here, they change over each candle. They will tell you what your ATR is and what the distance is. And those are the only two real important ones. So you can see it'll tell you in real time. Right here on this little skinny window is my SSL. And that is what I use as my C1. And that is really pretty easy to interpret. It only shows two things. It shows whether it's an uptrend or a downtrend, uptrend or a downtrend. The next thing I wanted to point out was what I've been using as my C2, and my exit is this one right here, and that's the QQE. And I use a 50 level on that. And how I use it for my C2 is that if this blue line is below the 50, that indicates a sell position, and if the blue line is above 50, that indicates a buy position. The next thing I have on my chart, actually let's go down here, is to the candle volatility index. This is what I use as my volume or my volatility indicator, and this is a simple, if the bars are above the moving average that you set, it'll give you volatility valid. If the bars are below, it'll tell you over here volatility low. So it's really kind of easy to read. You just look to your right or to your left, depending on where this is showing up, and it'll tell you either it's good or it's bad, yes or no. And finally, I have this indicator, which is the multi-sync index. And this is kind of an extra one that I've thrown on there. I use it maybe as a secondary C2. And I know, all of you NNFX purists out there are going to say, you don't need it, get it off your chart. I just happen to like it. It gives me a little bit extra confidence level in the trend. And likewise, this will tell me here if the bars are above the zero line, we get an uptrend. When the bars go below, we get a downtrend. So let me show you a little bit more about how I actually have the setups for these. Let's start with the CQ baseline. You can get this, and I've got it in my indicator list. It is a baseline, and again, it shows you when there's a cross down, when there's a cross up, and if there's greater than one ATR cross. So that's pretty simple to understand. C1 again was the SSL, and I'm using the SSL Fast S-Bar Alert multi-time frame. And again, it's either up or down in the signal, and you determine this by the colors or your buffers, buffer 0 and 1. And I have them both set to 3. Gives me a little bit bigger squares there, but that's how I have that set up. Now, QQE probably looks a lot different than the QQE you might have on your chart, and that's because I'm only using the first 2 buffers and not the third. And let me explain. This blue bar here is the actual QQE number. And you can see right here, blue, that is buffer 0. Okay, and I have that set to a width of 2 to be a little bit bigger. Now, buffer 1 is typically none, if I remember, in the default. But I set that to white, and I set it to a dotted line because I want to see it. So there's the buffer 1, and the way I use it, I don't even use buffer 2, which is this third line here. So I just set that to none, and it disappears off the chart. The other thing that I do is I do set on my levels here, I do set the 50 level again, so that I can tell if the blue line is above or below the 50 level mark. But this is why it probably looks different than yours. And all you have to do is look at your buffers and which colors your different lines are and which ones you want to use. Now for my volume or my volatility indicator, I use the candle volatility index. And I set these up as pretty thick bars going up here. And that is buffer 0. And you can see I have it set to antique white. And I have it actually at a 4 width to give those a little bit thicker. And then buffer number 1 is the red line, and that's the simple moving average that you set. And that's what will determine whether or not your volatility is valid or not, okay, because whether or not it's across that moving average. So that's how I have that set up. And then finally, as an extra, I've kind of been using this multi-sync index again, and I told you before, it's just extra. But again, these bars going down, whatever color you set them, make sure that you set them at a little bit bigger width so that you can see them easier. And then what I do is to get this dotted line here, just to help see it better, I just put in that 0 level, and I put the style to silver and dot it. So there you go. That is how I set up my indicators. I did want to mention kind of a brainchild that came to me. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. Is some people have been also having trouble in finding these indicators. Even though I put the links to where I found them, they have trouble downloading them or whatever. So I'm actually changing my download page for the toolkit. I'm going to add a secondary download link, and that is going to be to a zip folder that actually has these indicators in it. So you don't even have to go anywhere and look for them and download them. Just download that zip folder and it should have all of the indicators. And I've included the ones that are from this newest algorithm as well as the ones in my previous algorithm. So there you go. Merry Christmas. I hope everybody likes that. Let me know if you have any trouble downloading those. But anyway, with that, I will let you all go. Happy trading and Happy New Year.